Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. I am Francine Fosdick, and today we're diving into one of the most important conversations of our time. Hey, money, power, and global control. Oh my goodness, have we seen so many things as of late? And as we know, for decades, most people have worked hard, paid taxes, trusted the banking system, and never stopped to ask one simple question: who actually controls the money? Well, we're going to talk about a lot of things today with our special guest, Will Barney. He has spent, as most of you know, but for those who don't, he has spent most of his time studying the inner workings of bankings, has been in the system and knows. So without further ado, Will Barney, we are so blessed to have you on with us today, my brother.
Hi, Francine. Hope you're doing well today. Good to be with you again.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. And I wanted to dive into a couple things. And for some of the new people that are hopping on and their eyes are being opened, for some of them that do not truly understand it fully, what exactly is the Federal Reserve and how did it come into existence?
Well, the Federal Reserve was as G. Edward Griffin put it, the creature from Jekyll Island, where he had a group of bankers at the time that got together and said, let's create a system that can be the system for the United States. Because at that time, everything was individual banks. Some states even had slightly different currency from each other, although the greenback was the predominant currency of the day. And they came up with this plan where they could create a central bank, try to get everybody on board with that. But there were some that didn't want to do it. They were not into that. They had a little bit more of patriotism in them for the country and didn't want to subjugate the country underneath that. And unfortunately, those people that opposed the plan were aboard the Titanic that went down. And
Yeah.
that was actually a planned event. The explosions that took the boat down did not occur because they hit an iceberg. They were headed to the iceberg as their cover story. And J.P. Morgan was one of those that slipped off the boat 12 minutes before departure, so that he could be around to make sure all this stuff happened. So you had business leaders that were in the banking community that didn't want this to happen, who thought that this maiden voyage of the Titanic would be this great adventure. That ship actually wasn't the Titanic; it was the sister ship that goes by a different name. I think it was called the Columbia or some other name, and they repainted it, called it the Titanic because it had problems. It was structurally not sound anyway. And so they said, well, let's use the boat that we think isn't going to make it and go ahead and take that one down. So this was a planned event over time. And once they had the Federal Reserve in place, then they could control the country. They didn't care about the politics as long as they could control the money. So Federal Reserve System is not federal. It's a private bank. It is not a reserve. It has no reserves or very little. And so it's none of the things that you think of. Now, in the early days, it was the currency that they printed was backed by gold and silver. So there was some of that going on, but that ended after the instigated crash in 1929 when they launched the country into the Great Depression. It was actually a manufactured depression where they stopped the lending of money, causing a great pullback in the economy. Coming out of that, the country underwent bankruptcy. And in 1933, they issued new currency as the resolution to this. And this new currency was no longer backed by gold or silver. It was just a legal tender for all debts, public and private. It's undergone several myriad of changes, but basically that was the first pullback from actual assets was in 33. We had a reset in 45 with the Bretton Woods agreement, another reset in 71 where any connection to gold or silver was removed altogether, and it's been purely fiat in the 55 years since. So,
Mhm.
so it's a system designed. It's actually a failed system. What I mean by that is, it's not designed to ever resolve its debts. It works like this. When the Federal Reserve makes a loan, whether it be to the government or to banks, but it makes a loan, it requires that same currency be paid back to repay the loan. So let's say that it loaned $100 to the U.S. government and it charged interest on this, and the government has to pay back $105. Where does
Mm.
the government get the extra $5? Well, they only come up with that if they borrow more money again in order to cover that interest. And so because you couldn't use other assets, gold, silver, or anything else to pay the debt, it's designed to just inflate. And so that's what it's done over the course of time. It inflates very large until there's a reset. There was a reset in 33, it was a reset in 45, it was reset in 71, and that's the last reset. And so now we have this mountain of debt that they were hoping to actually cover by a reset when they got us into World War III. They wanted the whole world into World War III. It was actually going to be a spiritual war, a battle between the Christians and the Muslims and the Jews, and be this big epic event in which they hope to, coming out of this, have the Antichrist take over.
Right.
But during the war, they could say, well, hey, the economy is really bad. And I know you're all hurting, but that's because we all have to sacrifice during war, because that's what they said in other previous times, like World War II. So there was a problem to this plan, and the problem was that Donald Trump became the president. And he wasn't going to allow World War III to occur.
Right.
And that's really thrown a wrench into this entire system. So they can't reset it without it becoming just blatantly obvious to everybody, the fallacy of the system now. Now they're fully exposed. And that's kind of a trait of Donald Trump anyway. If you look at what the guy's done over many years, he has this, I call it uncanny ability to take people and make them come out into the street in the light of day, high noon on Sunday, if you will, and show everybody who you are.
Right.
And he's brilliant at this, and that's what we're seeing with the Iranian situation and other things too. Like, there's these war escalations that are going on. Kinetic war operations are really all interconnected together. And, you've got groups like the Promethean Action, who's doing a great job in trying to reveal some of this, how it ties back to the British Empire and why this is all connected, because even Iran is connected with that. What a lot of people don't know is within Iran, you've had CIA, MI6, and Mossad all operating with great intent, okay, within that country. What's interesting is each of those organizations originally were started by the same people. It's just that they're the intelligence agencies for these different countries, but it really was the cabal that put that intelligence agency together. They wanted to have supreme information so that they could control the world. Wow. And so a lot of this has happened, but it's been interrupted. Last January in 25, when Trump took over as president, he put an entire new cabinet in place that has been probably one of the most effective we've seen in our lifetime. One of those particular positions is a new head of the CIA, and it's John Ratcliffe. And what's interesting about John is John, for years when he was in Congress, was screaming about the problems in the CIA and how corrupt the whole thing was. And yet now he's put in charge of it. You don't hear much from John. He doesn't say very much. But now that he's in charge, the whole system's being used against them, not for them. And this is why we knew where all the targets were in Iran to eliminate that weaponry, because of this deep control that was done there. And so it's really fascinating what's taking place. The same thing's happening in the Americas. north and south. So Venezuela was controlled heavily by the intelligence agencies and was in direct correspondence and link with Iran. And Cuba, same thing. So there were some issues in Colombia, but that's been cleaned up. And all the cartels, drug cartels operating throughout the region were all part of the same group and being run by not only intelligence agencies, but they all tie into the British Empire as well. And this is why you have countries like China, for instance, who was the number one producer of fentanyl in the world, sending all this fentanyl over to the Americas. And everybody's like, well, why can't we stop this? Why can't we stop this issue? But you have to understand, China, their entire banking system is still controlled by the British Empire. Like, even though the British left Hong Kong a number of years ago and said we're giving it back to China, they still control the banking. And thus, China is the pet of the British Empire. So, and what do all these countries have in common? They all have dictatorship, communism, all of this going on, and this is problematic for the world. So while we've been in these operations, very interesting operations going on in Iran to try to eliminate this weaponry that could be used against us, all of this is really in an effort to come to the place of reset, because you can't just change this Federal Reserve and all the other central banks. You have 180 central banks across the world. They were all owned by the same 13 banking families. They were Luciferians, they're Satanists. They practice all kinds of ritualistic, horrible things that you wouldn't want to know about. And this had to be dealt with in some way. So what we're seeing today is kind of the culmination of what has been years of process that's now finally leading to it's bearing the fruit today. And this is fascinating because we had the Q movement's been around a very, very long time, many decades. And in fact, it originally started with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. But it really came into focus after the JFK assassination.
Okay.
And if you look at Abraham Lincoln and you look at JFK and you look at Garfield in 1893 and you look at all of these different, and there's another president right at the turn of the century. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? But there was 4 presidents, all assassinated, and every one of them was targeting the takedown of the financial system and the British Empire.
Wow.
They all had the same thing in common. Okay. So very fascinating how that occurred. I think the Q guys were hopeful that Ronald Reagan could be a means of making a change in the 80s. But when he was shot, that opportunity went out the window. And he retreated. The story is that he was taken to the hospital. The funny thing is that assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan occurred at the very same hotel that Trump was at just a week and a half ago for the dinner where there was another assassination attempt. Okay.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? Very same hotel.
Very
fascinating how this plays out. So if you look at all these different presidents, every one of them was speaking against the central bank system of the day, whatever it was. In Abraham Lincoln's day, we had, of course, civil war that was occurring, and he went to the banks to borrow money to conduct the war, and they all told him that they wanted 30% per annum, like high credit card rates to even loan money to the government, which was unbelievable. Ridiculous. And he went to multiple banks and they all said the same story. So now he knew the banks were in collusion with each other. And he knew we couldn't do that. The country couldn't afford that kind of usury. So he went to his Bible and he read his Bible and he prayed about it. And He didn't know what to do, and he's like, I feel like I should look at the Constitution again. And he reads through the Constitution, and he finds something in there that really changed everything. And that was that it said in the Constitution that the power to print money lies with Congress. And he said, why are we looking for money elsewhere? We should just print it ourselves. And that's what they did. That's where the greenbacks came from, is they printed 400 million plus greenbacks. And that's what they financed the north side of the war with in the Civil War. But as they got towards what would history would now show towards the end of the war, they ran out of money and they needed some more. And he went back to ask them to print more, and the Congress wouldn't do it because the bankers, the moment he did the first printing, well, we can't have this. That interrupts our evil plan over the long term. And so they sent lobbyists, right, to go and convince all of Congress that it would be the death of America to continue this. And so then they formed a central bank instead of printing more money. They formed a central bank and then borrowed the money for the last 3 months of the war. And so as the war finished, we now had a central bank again, and Lincoln started saying similar things to Andrew Jackson before him. You know, the central bank would be the slavery of the nation. He starts making public statements, and they were like, we can't have this. And so the guy is killed.
Right.
So that starts what would be, you know, over 100 years of history of control mechanism in the banking world, and assassinations to maintain that control all the way up to our present day. And now we have a president that's had multiple assassination attempts. And what is he seeking to do? He is disrupting their entire apparatus.
Yes.
And he's taking it down through the first major thing was that the world was being controlled by three different parts. You had the British Empire handling the banking side of things in the city of London. You had the Vatican running the religious side, and then you had the military side being handled out of DC, and the biggest, baddest army on the planet was the U.S. military, and it was being used for their purposes. Well, then Donald Trump takes over the military as commander-in-chief. It's no longer used for the cabal, and now he's taken over the intelligence agencies as well. And so they are in a panic. They're in a really massive, absolute panic right now. And I hear we're very close to a deal with Iran. By the way, I think we're going to have there's full regime change. It's probably just days away, if hours. Wow. And of a regime change there that's going to change that, because the Iranian army who did the bidding of the cabal, who paid them to be there, which they installed with intelligence agencies, fake elections, all that stuff. So now that that's being corrected and this big military that could blow up the world is dissolved, now there's this opportunity to move forward with the other stages of reset to get the banking stuff and everything else done to reset the money, where we can have a future, right? Yeah. That's outside of this control grid. So what you will see, and you are seeing right now, is voices out of Europe, still controlled by the cabal, speaking against the United States rather strongly. And as anyone's noticed, NATO did not back America in this conflict whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which tells you that Europe is still very strongly controlled. And even our sister country to the north of us, Canada, the prime minister has spoken very vehemently against Donald Trump. And he just took a trip to Armenia, where he met with many other countries, pledged a bunch of money they didn't have to the Ukrainian conflict, and said, we need to reset the alliance, and we need to start with Europe. Well, if the U.S. pulls from NATO, Europe has no power anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's probably the next major step that's coming, is the U.S. will withdraw from NATO, and it will leave them exposed, where we can eradicate even the cabal from Europe. So it looks like it's going in stages, but it's just steamrolling across the earth right now.
Right. Well, I remember in previous interviews that we had with you. I mean, you mentioned that it's not it's event driven, and we're seeing these events happen one after the other. And you mentioned several things here in regards to the reset that happened in the 70s, 71. So we are
Mhm.
poised for another reset for sure. And things are all playing, I mean, beautifully. I would say, I mean, Iraq no longer has Maliki, pulling the strings, and there's Alawai, or I always say his name wrong, but I mean, I believe he mentioned from Iraq that we will make Iraq great again. So the alliance there, that he has with Trump. So there's so many wonderful things that are happening, and like you said, the British Empire. I mean, so many people I know years ago, I did not realize the pull that they had, and their involvement with everything from our court system to the banking system. I mean, it was huge. And now with Trump at the helm, everything is being dismantled. And I just heard this one term that, yes, President Trump is the chief commander in chief, but I also heard this, and I've never heard of this before. He's also the exchequer, and what that meant was that he truly is, or becoming, the king of all nations. Have you heard that before? Exchequer?
Well, it's been suggested that if you look at his position, if there is a global leader, there is no question who it is.
Hmm.
There, there is no question at this point. And what's interesting is, during the Iranian conflict, Trump did something that shocked the world, and that was that he unleashed the sanctions on Russian oil.
Mm.
And he said he did this to ease the price of oil so that there wouldn't be any issues with the Iranian thing. But this was actually part of the plan, was to ease this because energy and food supply have been controlled mechanisms by the same cabal, okay,
Hmm.
that's been running the money system. And you see this very prevalent today in many ways, like the OPEC was
Hmm.
a controlled organization, and countries could only pump so many million barrels a year. Well, the UAE just left OPEC. That just happened in the last week. So now they can pump as much as they want, right? So what you're going to see on the other side of these perceived conflicts is
Mm.
energy is going to be abundant. It's going to no longer be restricted in any way. It's not going to be something that there's just only so much of, so you have to pay a high price for. It's going to be abundant everywhere. And this is part of leading into where we're going, is there's always been abundance on this earth. There's
Right.
never the lack. What people are going to find out is the lack that we are perceiving is all manufactured. It always
Right.
has been manufactured.
Mm.
And so this is really interesting, the developments that are taking place here. Good example, this morning the Department of Justice announced that they were taking steps to deal with this monopoly problem in the food industry in America, where four major corporations, two of them foreign owned, had taken control of the meat system, the beef, chicken, poultry, all of this, and they were causing some major problems. So they're going to be announcing, and this could come as early as tomorrow, um, that there's going to be antitrust issues brought up, and they're going to break this apart.
Wow.
So what's happening, and this is for anyone that's going to the grocery store, you understand this. Our meat prices, protein prices, are the highest they've ever been,
Oh, yeah, and it's not
right?
real meat. I mean, what they do to the meat is horrific, I mean, with glue and everything else. So, yeah, no, this is
So
good that this is
this has all been strategic, how they
happening.
have consolidated the companies. We have 17,000, no, excuse me, Yes, 17%. It's well over 100,000 less ranchers today than we had 30 years ago. We
Wow.
have less cattle being raised than we had in 1970.
Wow.
They're creating situations of lack, and they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
so this is all being broken apart by this administration. They're busting this up, and they're actually starting to take control of it. What's interesting is you mentioned the justice system.
Hmm.
How can we really have justice in America when every judge and lawyer swears allegiance to the bar, which is the
Right.
British accredited registry?
Right.
That's not even American.
Exactly.
So I don't see that we can get to a place of justice in America until this goes full military martial law, because the
Right.
military has sworn allegiance to the Constitution, and
Exactly.
they can carry out law as seemingly should be done for this country. But as you
Yeah.
look at many other nations, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see all this, the hunger,
Mm.
all everybody going hungry, and all these problems. This is manufactured to be this way for control. It's all about the control grid. So this is being completely ripped apart by this, not just Donald Trump. There's a whole team of patriots across the entire world. This isn't just
Yeah.
America; it's every country, to remove ourselves. And this is a bit like the many compare this to the parting of the Red Sea when
Hmm.
Moses, took the children of Israel out of Egypt, and they parted the Red Sea and wiped out the Egyptian army in the process. In fact, what's interesting to note is all these thousands of years later, Egypt has never been a world power since,
Right.
and they were the military might of the world at the time.
Mm.
Okay, is that not interesting?
Yes,
So
very.
God has a way of dealing with these problems.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I think
Absolutely.
you're going to see something very similar this time around, where this cabal that has had so much control is going to have nothing left. And I think it's all going to be revealed to the people. And we're
Yeah.
going to choose freedom and liberty once again, and it'll go across the whole world.
Yeah, that's so powerful. When you mentioned the military, and I was just thinking about, in the military, they have JAG officers, which are attorneys, lawyers. So they go by, military law and so forth. So I could see that take place, to where, there's a changing of the guards in regards to what we have right now for justice.
Absolutely. You're going to see a lot of changes. There's some changes have already occurred, and yet
Hmm.
it's not yet been revealed to the people. We're under 60 days to the 4th of July now.
Yeah.
There is all this conversation going on just this week alone about, let's get the Clarity Act done, right? Let's
Mm.
get the write-up finished in the Senate. Um, I was concerned that if we didn't get the Clarity Act signed, and even signed by the president, by the middle of May, that it might be difficult to effect a reset by the 4th of July, which is just 45 days hence.
Yes.
Um, However, there are some things in place that even if that signing moves into June, it can still be done, because they've prepared things appropriately. So, why is all this important? As you said, we're overdue for a reset,
Right.
and typically that would be covered up by the ravages of war, where the cabal wins both sides and then wins again when everything collapses. If you look at the financial data today of what's going on with the pending bond crisis and the
Hmm.
debt levels at all-time highs, we're looking at a situation today that if you compared it to what led to 2008, 2009 recession and the crisis that happened then, the situation today is 6 to 10 times that number.
Yeah.
So if we didn't do a reset and we didn't move to a new financial system, we would be facing the Great Depression times 3 or 4,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Right. Sure.
So there's not really an option. we have to do a reset. Okay, this is an absolute necessity. And if we do a reset sooner than later, before all this bond crisis comes to a head, we can weather the storm much differently,
Mm.
obviously, when those things come due.
And I see
And
that
so,
too.
it looks like we're headed that way for
Right.
great things very quickly.
I believe so. Well, because if you look at, how strategic President Trump is, and, having that five, layered chess ability of just able to seeing every which way, I could see that he's looking towards, for the people. How can we do this in an easy landing instead of like a crash landing? So I could see that happening, that this would take place. What a way to celebrate the 250th anniversary with something of a revalue, helping the people, and you mentioned too, when with a revalue, you're looking at not just currency, but so many other arenas, Nasara, and look at the birth certificates and so forth. I mean, all this stuff is coming out. I mean, with taxes, even people are becoming more aware of how we've been duped for so long. It's just been crazy, and praise God for your due diligence, and just seeing the whole banking system as it is and stepping away. And that must have taken a lot of courage too, because this was, your livelihood, and now you're, shifting away from that in some, way or form. But we thank
Mhm.
you for that. Yeah, I mean, wow.
It became untenable for me because
Mhm.
I am a spiritual person. I do believe that God wants us to do good. And when you realize the system is so corrupted that it's not even possible to patch it, like it's, you know, you have to just do something else because the entire system was built for graft and greed to prevail
Right.
all through the system. And the slower money moves, the more people earn off of it. Right.
Wow.
And so it was very problematic. That's why it's so different when you look at what's coming with like blockchain technology, where you can settle something in under 10 seconds.
Sure.
That's phenomenal when it used to be, could be 48 hours in country and could be a week if you're going out of country. Think how
Yeah.
different that is. So dramatic. It's because as that money moves slow, it's grifted and grafted. So as I saw all of this, I was like, I cannot knowingly know this and be a part of it. And and
Right.
and I just had to walk away, right?
Mm.
And
Sure.
and it's the same thing with everything, even with like our mortgage system, where people go and they borrow their house from the bank, to borrow the money for the bank to buy their house, and they're not realizing that the bank doesn't necessarily need to have all the money for the house. They just need a living person to sign that promissory note, because that promissory note can be deposited as money.
Right.
A promise to pay is money in a debt-based system. And so
Mm.
they could just deposit that into another account that covers your house, and you covered your house with your signature.
Right.
And now the bank gets all the interest and everything back from it, right?
Mm.
That's technically fraud. If they don't have a basis in the money, it's fraud. It's not
Right.
any different than the Federal Reserve loaning $2 trillion at the stroke of a mouse click. If all you did was click a mouse, then what basis did you have in the money? Can
Right.
you really charge trillions of dollars to be paid back to you when all you did was click? You,
Right.
you see how absurd that is.
Sure.
So it is, all of that has to be rectified. But what's interesting is we look at the alternatives now coming into our consciousness, like blockchain,
Mhm.
distributed ledger. So it's not centralized, it's multiple ledgers. So there's backups everywhere. And guess what? It's transparent. Everyone can see where the money went. You can't hide in that kind of system, and it becomes basically trustless. What we mean by that is that you don't need to trust the other person because the system tells you whether they have the capability to buy your item or not.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so it's incredible where we're going with this, and as you see other industries start to tokenize, like
Oh, sure.
we will eventually see real estate deeds become tokenized, right? You'll eventually see the stock market become tokenized. You have the SEC chairman, Paul Atkins, says we're going to be tokenized on the stock market in the next 12 to 24 months. Well, if you
Wow.
take all of Wall Street and all the machinations that go on there, and you put it onto a transparent system where everybody can see it, all the short selling and all the naked short sell, all that goes away. You
Wow.
can't pull that garbage anymore because now everything's totally transparent. And
Wow.
so as you unload each of these stocks onto the system, and then you're cleaning it up. You're cleaning up a whole system as you unload these on, and it becomes so much easier for even the SEC to management because everything's transparent for
Yeah.
everyone to see. So it's going to be really interesting how this impacts our world going forward.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and what a change too. I mean, you know how China is with their credit scoring and so forth. You know, with this type of technology, though, can they automatically close your, stop you from freeze your account? Let's just say, with this type of system.
Um, Only if you've done something inappropriate. If it can't be done arbitrarily, like China's saying, well, we didn't like what you said online on
Okay.
Facebook or whatever. It
Okay.
cannot be done with that. It can only be a financial infraction that could cause that.
Gotcha.
And that's part of the beauty of it is it's everyone's free to transact. Now, it's only if they're trying to do money laundering or something else, right, where that would be flagged. It would be impossible to close down an account just because you didn't like somebody. You have
Okay.
no option. You have to let the account stay open just because you don't like. And so it's I know people are concerned that this is going to be like a CBDC. That's the
Yes.
problem with central bank digital currency, is it's centralized where one group of people's controlling it. That
Hmm.
is the problem. Okay.
Okay.
But decentralized means you have multiple recordings of that transaction, all as testimony against you if you're doing something inappropriate.
That's good.
Okay.
Mm.
So it changes the dynamics dramatically. If you look at a lot of the, shall we say, dark activity that's happened, whether it be money laundering from drug cartels or whatnot, there's been major banks involved in this laundering process.
Oh my
And they
gosh.
know that it's going on, but they make money from it, so they do it.
Right.
But that's going
Exactly.
to be impossible in the new system.
Oh, good to
It'd
hear.
be absolutely impossible for that to ever occur. And so it keeps everybody clean and honest. And that's, I think, a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Because I tell you, just in the past 2 weeks, I've had someone try. Well, they didn't try. They got into one of our accounts, and then three credit cards, or two debit cards and a credit card was compromised. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So when I went into the bank, they said, hey, we're hearing a lot. I mean, we've had so many people come in about this, and it just made me think, okay, is it your bank, or what is going on here,
No, the scams are at an all-time high. And the reason is because they know their time is short. And
Mm.
so you have some of them are very sophisticated. Some of them are
Oh,
even being conducted by people that have inside information that should not be doing this, right? And this is why this fraud topic has become such a big deal. We just recently in the last 2 months, we had JD Vance appointed as the fraud czar now, right?
Oh yeah, right.
And we've got a whole department at the DOJ that is the fraud department now, and they're gonna be hiring 93 new prosecutors in every district, right, to go after just the fraud. That tells you how big it is. So
Right.
so the fraud thing is epic, and this is why when you get to the new financial system, there's going to be there's safety protections that'll be built into that. The
Oh,
problem
so.
with our magnetic cards
Mm-hmm.
or even some of the chip cards is if somebody can put a reader on
Right.
that, to capture that information on that device where they can capture that card information, they can try to use it. And that's going to be challenging. So I think what's going to be coming in the future is you'll have biological information
Mm-hmm.
on the card. What I mean by that is like the card only works if Francine is using it. If anybody
Right.
else tries to use it, it's invalid.
Gotcha.
Right. And
Gotcha.
I think that something like that is coming for the safety and protection of everybody. And even as you do smart contracts on the new blockchain system, everybody's like, well, is that transparency mean that everybody knows what I have? No one can see what you have. But if you enter a smart contract, the contract will notify the other party whether you can do it or not.
Oh, gotcha.
They
Okay.
don't know how much you have. They just know you have the capability. Okay.
Got
And
okay.
so there's protections that are built there for people. Now, this is why we need to get away from, I think, this idea that a central bank, that everything needs to go through a central bank or even a central international location like the Bank of International Settlements in
Mm.
Switzerland or whatever, right? Where everything's got to pass through there. This was all about control. But if you
Right.
can send peer to peer, if you and I can just send to each other directly, person to person,
Mm.
it'll be there fast, it'll be there secure, and you'll have it instantly.
Right.
It changes the dynamic, and there's not like 5 people in between that make money off of the money,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
On the way
Yeah,
there.
because most people don't realize that when you put money in the bank, they're using your money to invest in other things. I mean, they're benefiting from you putting your money in there. So this way
And
they won't be able to do that, right?
that's correct. That's
Mhm.
correct. They wouldn't be able to do that. So the only way that you can earn money from a financial institution is you had to actually put it there. Under current banking law that was updated during the Obama administration, it basically states that once you deposit money into the bank, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the bank. And
Right.
you only get it back when you can make a demand for that. And the demand is a check that you might write or a debit card transaction. That's called a demand. So when you demand it back, then they have to give it back to you when you make those demands. So
Mm.
that's currently the situation. But they also changed the language in the Banking Act that says that a depositor's money is a lower priority than derivatives. And
Wow.
derivatives are obligations that they might owe to other banks or
Mhm.
financial institutions. Okay. So if something happens to this bank, they could pay all their buddies and leave the depositors high and dry.
Right.
And they could
Exactly.
do it lawfully because it's right there in the law. And I can't believe the Senate and the House ever passed this, but they did. It's
Wow.
basically what's called a bail-in,
Right.
where they use your money, so they pay off all their buddies and use your money to do it. And this was changed after the big issues that happened in Cyprus and Greece, and where they had issues over there. Well, then they said, well, hey, bail-ins work good over there. Let's do it. Let's do it in America. They changed the law.
Oh my gosh. Oh, so glad that this is all going to shift. I think it's important that we do have silver on hand, and of course, when the revalue happens, things will change, and a lot of people are waiting for that. There's so many people, Will, that are struggling, that
Mm-hmm.
and I really believe that this is our year. I remember Kim Clement. and every year I would say, "Oh, this is the year," But in prophecy, sometimes you just don't know the exact timing. It's like Jehovah sneaky moving in. It's when He wants it, and I'm
That's
really
right.
hopeful that this is the time and the season for it, because people are in, you know, a lot of them dire straits. So this would be such a blessing for
It
all people.
it always, when you get to the end of a system's life where it's absolute necessity to reset it, that's always the most difficult part. And if you
Mm,
look at every historical time in history, go back thousands of years, whenever there's been a major change of economic systems, like the collapse of the Roman Empire and things like this, it's always difficult going through that.
sure.
So I wish we could say there won't be any turbulence, there won't be any issues, but that would be not a true statement. It is
Right.
going to be challenging. What you see from this administration is they're making a very intentional effort to ramp up and accelerate this economic engine as a means of helping to smooth out that turbulence. Like,
Right.
Donald Trump has secured 18 trillion of investment into America. Well, how did he do that? And why is it coming in so quickly? Well,
Hmm.
what he did was he said, look, if you build new factories here in America, there will be no tariffs. And
Right.
we'll give you certain tax incentives for building factories here for a period of time, but only if you get that factory built within the next 4 years. So
Right.
it's turbocharging. You have
Wow.
thousands of contractors now working full speed trying to build these facilities because they've got to get done within a time window. And
Mm.
and this is generating this economic activity to try to help us. And this is all about helping to recover as you go through the transition. Because if it's going well, then you land better on the other side. So
Yeah.
so doing everything that they can. They know, and we all know, that when a system is reaching the end of its life, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging.
Mm.
But they're trying to minimize that recovery period as short as possible by taking these actions. And I think they are going to bear that fruit out. I think it's going to shorten that impact and make it feasible for us to land on the other side. And not only to land, we're going to thrive on the other side in incredible
Amen.
ways. Um,
Get that.
as we get out of this matrix, the control matrix, we're going to really, really thrive. It's going to be amazing.
I believe that absolutely. So what is the bigger picture of Operation Freedom?
Well, it's interesting. So there's over 1,000 vessels trapped in the Arabian Sea that need to get out of the Strait of Hormuz. And Operation Freedom was to basically start escorting these vessels through there. And they did. They escorted several vessels. Some of them were big major ships who need to get that oil delivered, or other goods. There's other goods there as well that need to get out of there. And some of those vessels have been just sitting in the water, just waiting for a
Right.
chance to get out. And their
Mm.
crews are eating up the food in the kitchen. They're like, we're running out of supplies. We got to get going here. So so it's very fascinating what's going on. But that was paused yesterday by
Hmm.
President Trump. He says, it looks like we might have a deal here. We're going to pause it to see if we can finish this deal. And but the intelligence information is suggesting that a deal is imminent, and a new regime is probably going to be coming into play there in Iran.
Yeah.
It's going to change everything dramatically. So Operation Freedom could be rebooted. Now, if they come to the agreement that it sounds like has been proposed, it
Hmm.
would mean the strait would be open and there would be no restrictions whatsoever, and all the vessels could get out of there and
Right.
start transversing that international water. So that's what we hope to see happen, and I'm hoping that just within a couple of days we're there. The problem is Iran they're reaching the end of their clock, and that
Right.
clock is that they're filling up their oil tanks, and once those
Mm.
tanks get full, they have to start shutting down wells. And the problem with an oil well is that when you close it down, you get brackish water and everything else starts to intrude into the well, and the ability to restart it becomes diminished. And oftentimes, if you can get it up and going again, you may be at only 60% of the capacity you formerly had. So it's best not to ever shut them down, but to keep them going once they're started. But they're running out of that capability because the tanks are full. So they're going to have to either shut down or cut a deal,
Right, right.
and be able to unload that oil.
Wow. Yeah, because it seems like, everything Trump does is intentional. I mean, he has a plan behind it. And to me, it just kind of looked like he was putting the squeeze on them so that they would be at the 11th hour where they truly have to make a decision before they shut those oil wells off.
Yeah, that's why he says they're going to make a deal. They want to make a deal.
Yeah.
This is pretty obvious, but they've been militarily, they've been defeated. Now they have a few little small arms here and there, but they don't have the capability they had before. We wouldn't have known those target points if it wasn't for all of the intelligence that have been going on for the last 15 months, gathering the intelligence of where those locations are and getting all that set up. The CIA has been in Iran for a long time. But now they were being used to decapitate the power structure rather than continue the terror. And so it's now, are we going to have a CIA in the future? I don't know. I don't know why there's a point to have it, because why don't you or you move it underneath the auspice of the military? But we already have a intelligence department within the military, so it's hard to say what future that organization has. But I am delighted to see that it's actually being used to liberate the people of the world instead of enslave them now.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, I mean, if you could leave the viewers with a final message, what would you say?
I would say be of great cheer. These events are meaning that we're nearing the end of this. We have the Cabal is on the ropes. They're running, and they don't have underground subterranean places to hide anymore. That's been eliminated. And now there's this great ability to finish this cleanup in a magnificent way. As we move into the reset, this is going to launch, not only with the coming of the new currency, launches the reset and the revaluation of currencies, because the revaluation was always meant to be paid out in asset-backed currency. So as we get the capability to launch new currency, we get all these other activities that come from it. That's going to launch projects across the whole world. And that's what we do. I mean, we're all about projects here. So everything that we're doing is how can we take a great idea and let's turn that into a business that's actually doing stuff, right? Employing people and getting the work done. And so we're trying to help humanitarians in that way as best we can. We are building software and hardware systems to do just that. That is safe and secure. We're using military-grade encryption type technology to keep everybody safe and protected while we do the work, and be able to provide a mechanism where thousands of new businesses and projects can be launched every year, and they can be maintained and operated for the blessing of the world. So it's a big load. We've got a lot on our plate. We do thank everybody that is working with us and helping us with this project. We have a lot of other specific projects. We're going to be begin featuring those on our website here soon, of specific things that are coming out. New building technologies, new building materials, soil restoration projects. A lot of these things impact the entirety of the world, not just America. And we'll be featuring some of these things because they're amazing. But the new building technology and materials is allowing us to reduce the cost of home construction dramatically.
Yeah, that's
you
huge.
know, to probably a quarter or a third of what traditional construction is, and it would last 10 times longer. So, so a lot of really great things I think are coming, and we want to see them realized, and we will, as we build out these companies and these technologies, and it goes forward. Energy is going to be readily available to everybody in the near future,
Mm, yes.
where whether it be petroleum or otherwise, there's going to be major changes made in energy. And Donald Trump is paving the way when he's saying, let's drill, baby, drill. Let's just make it abundantly available, right?
Right.
There's no reason to keep the lack going. So I think with all of these things going on, please be encouraged, everyone. But if there's something you can do to prepare yourself, I would say get your projects ready. Start working on your business plan, things that you need to do to be effective with the things that you want to accomplish. And that just gives you a head start when the time is here to begin that work. So
Yeah.
thank you for having us on, Francine,
Oh my
and
God.
having this discussion. It's always delightful to be with you.
Well, I thank you. Well, it's a blessing to have you on, and I love what you're doing at gs.com. If you are, and that's so awesome because a lot of times people have ideas, but they just don't have at that time the finances to propel that idea to manifest in reality. And what you all are doing is just helping those get their everything, the business plan in order, because you need to have a business plan, and who it's going to affect and so forth. So that's just so important. I wanted to bring something up too, that we've been a part of something truly meaningful, bigger than myself. Right now, we are working with a company that has been feeding children in over 90 countries that are malnourished for over 25 years. And our company kind of partnered with them. And it's just so awesome to see the difference that's being made, so every product that is sold is matched to send overseas and here as well. And that's what it's all about, the humanitarian touch to be able to affect everyone. And so what you all are doing is just totally amazing. And we appreciate you so much. And I want to thank everybody for listening in and just being a part of this broadcast. Head on over to the website that you see on the screen. And if you have any questions about an invention or a project that you may have, a kingdom project, contact Will Barney and his team, and they will definitely help you, give you ideas. I know I had one lady, she contacted you and she called me back and she was like, I can't believe they even talked to me. I mean, it was just
Sure.
it's so awesome
Yeah.
because sometimes people think it's just so far they can't reach it, but you guys, you all make it happen. So I'm going to thank you, Will Barney, for being on the
We're
broadcast.
sure.
Yes,
We're,
sir.
we're trying to make that happen for everybody. My time is somewhat limited, as you can imagine, but there is a calendar on the website where if you can find time on there, you can get an appointment with me. I don't know how long that will continue as we get into the funding phase. That may go away. And
Sure.
it's not that I don't want to meet with people, because I love it actually, but it's really just a matter of balancing time and getting to all the things that need to be done. So if you have an opportunity to book with me now, then now's the time, I guess, to do it.
Yeah,
So,
do it now
but
before that
it's wonderful having these conversations. I appreciate it.
yeah, you bet. Because that time, I tell you what, when this all pops and the popcorn is popping, and when this happens, oh my gosh, yeah, it's going to be hard to get a hold of any of us because we do all have projects, So get a hold of Will and his team, and they'll take care of you. Thank you, Will Barney. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Upfront in the Prophetic. You can find us on YouTube as well as X and Rumble. Rumble's been a gem for us because we were kicked off with almost 500,000 people. And it was just like, what in the world? But Rumble has been so good to us. So thanks again, everyone. And we look forward to being with you again tomorrow on Upfront in the Prophetic. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.